If you struggle to fall asleep, you might be familiar with this cycle, lying in a dark room, scrolling through a feed of videos. The harsh blue light emitted by that screen prevents your pineal gland from secreting melatonin. At the same time, the hyper-arousing, fast-paced content elevates your cortisol levels, actively disrupting your circadian rhythm and delaying the onset of actual rest. Empirical research in cognitive neuroscience points to a highly effective, deeply analog solution. Listening to classic archival audio dramas, specifically the mid-century broadcasts from the golden age of radio, provides the sensory engagement needed to bypass photic melatonin suppression. During naturalistic listening, removing visual stimuli means incoming acoustic cues heavily activate the default mode network, an area associated with visuospatial imagery. You actively construct environments in your head, a phenomenon known as the theater of the mind. Television delivers immediate, high-intensity visuals that keep your brain in a passive, stimulus-driven loop. An engaging audio story acts as an attentional anchor in the dark. It distracts your mind from intrusive, ruminative thoughts, gently guiding your autonomic nervous system out of a fight-or-flight stress response and into a restful, parasympathetic state. Processing these audio narratives also offers direct regulatory benefits for neurodivergent populations, particularly individuals with ADHD. Listening to structured, rhythmic audio provides a baseline of sensory stimulation that satisfies the brain's inherent need for arousal, effectively occupying hyperactive sensory-seeking mechanisms. In this model of neural pathways, we see how cross-modal sensory stimulation works. By listening to an audio narrative while visualizing the story, neural networks responsible for cognitive control get a direct workout. This active engagement improves hemispheric synchrony and strengthens executive functioning. However, there is a physical roadblock to harnessing these benefits today. The vast majority of these culturally and therapeutically valuable broadcasts are currently trapped inside rapidly decaying physical media. Original broadcasts preserved on glass discs, analog magnetic tape, or transcription acetates are intrinsically plagued by severe bandwidth limitations. The physical tape hiss, vinyl crackle, and acoustic degradation shatter the immersive cognitive spell required for the theater of the mind to actually work. To actually utilize these neurological effects, the audio must first be computationally rescued from decades of physical deterioration. The emergence of state-of-the-art AI-driven audio processing has replaced manual, destructive spectral editing. Deep neural networks now execute archival restoration with near-instantaneous inference. Modern platforms deploy separate neural pathways to perform stem separation. These AI engines act as automated broadcast engineers, analyzing a degraded track and surgically isolating the primary vocal dialogue from background static, hum, or embedded musical scores without damaging the underlying acoustic signal. Once the archival audio is cleaned and isolated, engineers face the challenge of modernizing flat, monoroll historical broadcasts. To do this, they employ AI spatial upmixing to transform those single-channel recordings into fully immersive, object-based formats like Dolby Atmos. This 3D coordinate map demonstrates how semantic acoustic scene analysis maps isolated stems into physical space. The AI firmly anchors direct dialogue in the center channel for absolute intelligibility, while dynamically positioning ambient soundscapes, Foley, and musical swells in overhead and rear surround channels. This three-dimensional upmixing vastly enhances the listener's spatial awareness. It successfully bridges the gap between a flat, limited 1950s broadcast and the highly immersive acoustic environments required for modern therapeutic interventions. As artificial intelligence conquered the auditory domain, it inevitably targeted the visual. We now have generative AI video models capable of retroactively rendering these restored soundscapes into 4K IMAX quality cinematic outputs. Converting a 30-minute radio drama into a feature-length film requires a rigorous multi-stage production pipeline known as the frame-to-film workflow. It begins with large language models ingesting the restored audio transcript and breaking the narrative into discrete, manageable shot lists detailing camera angles and blocking. Next is the world-building phase. Creators use specialized image generators to establish a visual aesthetic, generating reference sheets for character facial designs, wardrobes, and environments. This ensures absolute object persistence across hundreds of disparate generated shots. Finally, the isolated audio stems are synced to the visual cuts. Advanced frameworks utilize chain-of-thought reasoning to perfectly align the generated temporal physics and camera movements to the restored dialogue and Foley sound effects. The result is a cohesive, immersive cinematic experience. A purely auditory archival relic is mutated into a fully realized modern visual blockbuster, orchestrated entirely by artificial intelligence. But the ability to computationally restore and visually adapt archival audio relies on accessing the underlying intellectual property. Right now, a massive wave of mid-century media is legally locked behind the orphan works crisis. On this media timeline, an orphan work is a copyright where the creator is impossible to locate. Enforcing strict liability with damages up to $150,000 per work paralyzes institutions. Archivists must let millions of irreplaceable analog assets disintegrate rather than risk crippling litigation. Our computational capacity to save and enhance cultural history currently vastly outpaces our legal framework's willingness to let us access it. Beyond pure statutory legality, deploying generative AI in archival spaces introduces a profound ethical dilemma. We have to identify the boundary between preserving an authentic artifact and engaging in historical revisionism. If an AI engine artificially hallucinates missing high frequencies to patch a damaged segment, or generates completely fabricated visual frames for a historical broadcast, documentary purists argue it actively distorts the primary source document. We risk losing the authentic, raw human element that drove the original live performance, which leads to the ultimate cognitive paradox. The profound neurological benefits of the audio drama, its ability to calm anxiety and exercise working memory, stem entirely from the absence of visual stimuli. If we convert these therapeutic soundscapes into high-definition AI-generated movies, we destroy the very mental theater we originally sought to save. Meaningful cultural preservation in the age of generative AI requires more than raw computational power. It demands the ethical restraint to protect the authentic human imagination at the core of the original work.